How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hope everyone is having a lovely day. I mean, we got a little bit of a meeting to do. A little bit. It might have came out of my mouth. Might have been really recent. Could have been. Nah, couldn't have been. Yeah, probably was. Irv Smith Bengals need to trade for a tight end. Irv Smith ain't it. Irv Smith is not the guy. And you know what? I think it's still really early, but we're about to jump on that Irv Smith train. Let me tell you what, it is the Irv Smith bandwagon time of year. Now, let's talk about why. Now, remember, the Bengals started out really slow this season. Remember how bad T. Higgins was? T. Higgins was terrible. I mean, that great receiver. Statistically, he was terrible. He was dropping a lot of passes. He was struggling. He was struggling. Look at the number. He had like 130 yards, 140 yards, 4 or 5 games into the season. Oh, well, pretty. We didn't bat an eye. Ain't nobody bat an eye at T. Higgins, and we shouldn't have. Because, again, T. Higgins has proven himself. He's an elite player. He's a really good football player. We all had faith that he was going to figure it out. And now the reason I bring that up is because Irv Smith was the opposite. Irv Smith kind of had to earn his stripes entering this season. So every time Irv Smith made a mistake, every time Irv Smith wasn't putting up good numbers, every time Irv Smith was unheard of, we all dogged him. Got a lot of heat. A lot of heat about not being the guy. Got to get another tight end. Irv Smith ain't it. We should never let go of Hurst. Should never let go of Uzama. Hey, you want to see some crazy stuff, how the Bengals and how important it is just to have a scheme and a guy that can catch a football. CG Uzama, I don't know if he has 100 receiving yards yet this season. The money they're paying over there in New York. Nonetheless, I hope he does good. I really do, but I think that was one of those cases where there's a lot of tight ends that can fit into this Bengals system. Sometimes we just have to have faith. Sometimes we've got to give him time. I think Irv Smith might be a guy we just needed to be a little bit more patient with. These last 2 games now, 7 catches, 51 yards, nearly doubling his receiving yards on the season over those 2 games. And he's been a lot more effective. And not only has he been more effective, but I felt like the first 3-4 games, it almost felt like he was a black hole out there sometimes. He was dropping passes. We looked at him making catches like that was something Hayden would have done. Hayden would have completed that. CJ would have picked him up. And again, it does happen where you got to give a guy time to kind of get comfortable. It felt like he wasn't comfortable. It felt like he was still trying to figure out the offense a little bit. But these last couple games, it feels like we're getting the tight end play that we expect out of Bengals tight ends. Again, I don't think he's going to play. He's not going to play with the fire. He's not going to play with the ferocity. He's not going to play with the sheer will and strength that Hayden Hurst did. But that's not a knock at all to Irv Smith. I just think that's a compliment towards Hayden. Hayden Hurst, that's a guy that, if you want to say, like, he took a completely new perspective. We heard about his past. And, there's a guy that just took a completely new outlook on life and the way he played football. And I don't think there's a lot of guys in the league that can match up with how Hayden Hurst plays. He was a different type of guy. But that doesn't mean Irv Smith can't be a different type of guy in his own way and be a very impactful player for this football team. And the reason we say, let's be patient with Irv and he can do what he's got to do, because this is still, that's a big-bodied guy out there. That's a big boy to be trying to tackle when he starts playing. Well, that's a big target for Joe Burrow. And I think when you look back early in the season, there's a couple things to consider here. Joe Burrow in that calf injury. Again, we didn't look at T because, Joe Burrow in that calf injury. He couldn't move. It was difficult. It was hard for him to throw. He couldn't throw the football downfield. You could tell he was struggling. Joe Burrow, we just talked about it, 75% completion percentage the last 4 games. Joe Burrow was struggling. Historically bad numbers from his perspective or his personal career. And there's no doubt about it, that calf injury was bothering him. You consider that, you put that into Irv Smith's situation. A couple of things. First of all, knowing your quarterback cannot move. He can't scramble. He can't move. You're going to say, all right, Irv, we're going to need you to block a little bit more. When Burrow gets healthy, when Joe's ready to go, you're going to run. We're going to get you out there catching some more passes. Right now, we need you to block more. So you're not going to see him out there making as many plays. More importantly, a lot of the scheme, when you do run out there, run them routes, a lot of it has to do with Joe Burrow being mobile. We've seen this Bengals team in the past with their tight ends, a lot of schemed up tight end passes feature a little bootleg, a little play action with Joe Burrow to the tight end. 2 things the Bengals could not do in those first 3, 4, 5 weeks. Another thing, you see what Mahomes and Kelsey do so well. The Bengals kind of do it a little bit with their tight ends, and not to the extent Kelsey probably the best there is to ever do it, but kind of understand the amount of time, the cadence, the internal clock, if you will, of the quarterback of like, hey, 1 second, 2 seconds, all right, chip off, get out there, get off my block, get open. Like, that's something they specialize in. And a lot of that can do with the Bengals. You feel that the Irv Smith or Bengals tight ends, like, hey, they kind of do that to an extent, where they have that time clock and hey, my quarterback's starting to scramble. My quarterback's going to get out. He's the late slip out screen, if you will. And again, if Burrow can't move, he's stuck in one spot in the pocket. That play is kind of out the door. So a lot of the stuff that we see the Cincinnati Bengals do with their tight ends, we wasn't really seeing Irv get a chance to do, get comfortable with. But I think the more and more he plays, he'd caught 7 of his last 8 targets now. The more and more he plays, obviously that one drop was standing out, but the more and more he plays, you got to think he's going to get more comfortable. This is a very talented tight end. When the Bengals brought him in, you know, Minnesota believed in this guy for a while. A lot of people believed in this guy. The injuries were a concern. They said, all right, we're going to move on. They had TJ Hawkinson. There was no reason to, you know, ride that ship anymore. I think we got a reason to say, hey, let's jump on the Irv Smith Jr. bandwagon because this guy still has a chance to be a guy. And this guy has a chance to make an big impact for this Bengals team. And I think when the Bengals went out there and said, hey, we're not going to trade for a tight end, I'm sure a tight end, they could have got a mid-late pick, traded for a tight end, but like, all right, we know where we're at in this. We know where we're at in this, you know, situation here. We got to win a Super Bowl. One of our best chances to do it's now before we lose Lou, before Joe's making a bunch of money, before Chase, whatever. And they said, hey, we believe in you, Irv. They had that kind of sort of confidence and belief in Irv Smith. And I think he's going to take that and run. I really do. I think this is the beginning of a turn and a trend in the up direction for Irv Smith Jr. on this Cincinnati Bengals team. And I am hoping for nothing but the best out of this guy moving forward. Love to hear y'all's thoughts. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time.